Welcome back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Today, I am joined by Kelly Robinson. He is the founder of RedDot Media, which is a recruitment marketing company. Now, Kelly has a phenomenal background that you guys are going to be able to chew up today. He has not only owned his own recruiting and search firms, but he's mentored and trained hundreds of recruiters that have built into the hundreds of millions of dollars and everywhere in between. He's also been a part of over 500,000 job advertising posts. This guy has a ton of knowledge, a ton of information, and today I get to pick his brain. Kelly, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, I'm delighted. Thank you very much for that very warm intro. Excellent.
So Kelly, I know we were just talking, but share with everybody where in this beautiful world you're at right now.
So I am in a delightful place called Newport Beach in Southern California. So as you can hear, I'm a SoCal native by my accent.
Yep.
No, I come here via London, and like many people, about 12 years ago, came here to launch Broadbean, which was my business at the time. And the plan was to spend a couple of years and get the office set up. So, me and my family moved over, and kids started school here. And you can imagine 2 years later, the thought of going back to grey, rainy England, that was never happening. So we've been here ever since. And we've done the whole process, right? So from visa to green card to now, 2 years ago, full on citizens.
Yep. Well, that's awesome, man. That's a heck of a story. How long ago did you say you came over here?
I got here Friday the 13th of March, 2009.
Wow.
And I literally landed in LAX with a rental car, a checkbook, and I'm going to build an office, and drove down PCH. That was how it all started.
I love it. I love it. Just taking that leap. That's awesome. Yep. I know our friend Alistair Neal is watching with us live here. He's the one that connected us. So I just noticed that.
Alistair Pager. Excellent.
Yep.
Advisor to that company.
Yep. Awesome. So Kelly, like I said in the intro, I mean, you've been a part of your own recruiting businesses, and now you're at RedDot, but give us a little background. How did you get started in the recruiting industry?
Unsurprisingly, I didn't come out of school going, "Hey, I want to be a recruiter." I came out of school as a failed COBOL programmer. I'm showing my age now. And nobody would, I never finished my degree. Nobody would ever actually hire me as a programmer. And I saw an ad in the paper that said, trainee people training to recruitment consultancy. I had no idea what recruitment consultancy was at the time, but I listed the things. I thought, well, that sounds like I could do that. So I went for the interview, and lo and behold, ended up with a desk and was into technical recruitment. And I made again, showing my age, my first placement in June 1989. And it's funny, you never forget your first deal, right? My first placement was a C developer, Vogue skill at the time, for the princely sum of £12,000 a year salary and a 17.5% fee. So
remember the first one just like that, huh?
Absolutely. I'll never forget it. It was that first deal. Because I also worked in the firm that I worked for at the time was very strict. They simply had a rule. If you failed to bill in any 90-day period, any 3 months, you were out. That was it. And you made 100 cold calls every single day without fail. Those cold calls which you made between 9 and 12. Right. And then in the afternoon, they gave me a system, cold call in the morning, work jobs in the afternoon, and either bill every month. And if you ever miss 3 months back to back, you're out the door. It was a really clear set of rules. So I was schooled in that old school way of doing things. Doesn't work nowadays. I'm not saying I endorse it, but at least it was a structure and a system.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you end up starting your own recruiting firm after that?
Yeah, so I was lucky. I got good at the job, and I think the fundamental. I was quite young, and at the time in my world, it was very difficult to get IT managers to take 20-year-old kid looking back seriously. Mm-hmm. So I thought, if I'm going to be good at this job, I can't make myself older, but what I can do is I can be really knowledgeable. And because I love technology and wanted to be a programmer, I was always into the technical and the geeky side of things, for want of a better word. And so as a result, what I did was I became very knowledgeable, and that helped me to become successful at making placements. And as like most people in this industry, if in the agency world you're relatively successful, very quickly they give you a team, and then very quickly that team grows. And then I had the opportunity to run a business, and then eventually, setting up on my own.
Right. Right. How long did you run your own business for?
For about 10 years.
Got it. Got it. So what inspired you then to kind of make that shift into kind of the more recruitment marketing side of things?
So it went in steps, really. So we built our business. So it was me and a partner. We built our businesses into 3 or 4 different disciplines. We had a whole bunch of success in the early era of the .com world, and then the year 2000. The whole, I don't know if you remember this, but there was that whole Y2K thing where everybody thought all the computers were going to stop at year 2000. So that was kind of an interesting time to be in the recruitment space. And it was about that time when the market transitioned from writing out classified ads in newspapers, I'm looking for a programmer to do ABCD, to using job boards. And I looked around at my firm and I realized that my teams were spending more and more time on these job boards. I thought there's got to be a more organized way to do that. And so ended up creating a piece of software, which initially was for us, it was the Firebeam project. And it was to take a job and to post it onto 6 job boards simultaneously. And the whole idea was, rather than go and copy and paste my job 6 times onto these different internet job sites, we do it in one place and the technology would take care of putting it in the other 6. Ended up showing that to a couple of people that, friends of mine that were in or running agencies. They liked the idea, said they'd buy it. They thought it was an interesting product. So we turned it into a company. We called it Broadbean because, it was year 2000. It was, hey, we need a wacky kind of new name. So we called it Broadbean, which I think in the US would be a lima bean. Is it lima or lima? How would you say it?
I think it's lima. I don't know.
Bean?
Yeah,
lima bean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess the company, if it was born in the US, would have been called Lima Bean.
Yep.
And very quickly found out that if you are selling a product that has anything to do with advertising and candidates to staffing companies, they really don't like it if you own a staffing business. So early on, I was faced with this dilemma. Do I stay in recruitment or do I chase the technical piece? And I decided to do technology, sold off the recruitment businesses. And that was really more of a management buyout.
Right.
And then focused on building Broadbean, which was the job distribution company.
I think it's interesting though, because your ultimate goal, as you set out in your career, was actually to own and be in technology, right? Did I get that right early on?
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to be a programmer. I ended up being a failed programmer, but ended up owning the company and hiring programmers.
Yep, that's awesome. That's such a cool story. So, now here we are. You started this. How long ago did you start Broadbean? And I know you're not Broadbean now. It's now RedDot. But when was Broadbean?
Yeah. So the story in that was. We launched Broadbean in 2001. We got a relatively dominant position in the UK marketplace, which attracted investors. But investors wanted us to go global. So I moved to the US in 2009 to bring the business here. Took us 2 years to really understand the market in the US versus the UK. And then we built that up. It's where I work with people like Alistair. And then we built that business up to 2014, where we sold it to Career Builder and joined and worked with them for 3 years. And at the end of that contract, I was going to, honestly, at the end of that period of time, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing recruitment anymore. I don't want to talk about advertising. I don't want to talk about candidates anymore. I'm out. I'm going to do something entirely different. 6 weeks later, I'm back in a recruitment marketing project. I'm literally 6 weeks. I'm back in a recruitment marketing project, and then RedDot just sort of like grew from there. And so what we do is we take all the knowledge we've gained from all of that job advertising work. So during that period, from 2009 to when I left in 2017, we sat on top of 500 million job postings. So I've seen every possible combination of success and failure in job advertising, and the companies that do phenomenally well make tons of money out of it, and those that fail. And people started calling us in and saying, hey, can you help us? We're spending all this money on our job campaigns. They're either not working, we think we're spending too much, are we getting value? And we stepped in, and that's what we do. We run campaigns for large companies that are typically hiring 100+ people, and we help them to maximize or fine tune what they're doing on their job advertising front.
Got it.
And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years.
Love it. So it's 2021 now. You've had a lot of your success early on when you started this Broadbean all the way back in the early 2000s. Are job boards dead?
Well, I think they've changed a lot, but I mean, let me give you some numbers, and that will probably answer that for you. if you look at June, Indeed, the small brand in the job advertising world. Now, if you look at Indeed, right, number one in our space, 615 million visitors to the Indeed site in June. Number two was ZipRecruiter with 50, 60 million, right? But they are literally 10 times bigger than everybody else. And then you've got, Monster, Career Builder, and so on and so forth, all the brand names that you're aware of. And
Right.
they're in the sort of 15 to 20 million range. So there was over 800 million people visiting job boards just in June alone. So thousands of hires, millions of people looking at jobs, and all going back to those job sites. So
Right.
Are they dead? Absolutely not. What's fundamentally happened is they changed the way they're pricing. We used to buy a classified slot. Here is a job posting. I'm going to buy it for 30 days, whether it works or not. That model still exists, but it's kind of, with the exception of Craigslist, which is still phenomenally successful. To me, it's changed now. People want to pay for performance. Now, whether that's a click or an application, it depends on the way you do business, but it's very different. If you're buying click traffic at 60, 70, 80 cents a click, or you're buying an application at $5, $6, $7, you're not paying for a job that doesn't deliver you any results. You're only paying for those results. So I think for me, they're not dead. The reason why Pooh used to say that is, who wants to spend $250 on a job posting and get no results?
Right.
No one wants to do that, especially if you're running a small boutique agency. It's like dead money. Spending $250 knowing that I'm only going to spend that money if I get results, well, that's different.
Right. Right. So more of it now is really just focusing on the approach.
Yeah, I mean, for me, job advertising is and I may be a little biased because I spent a lot of time in it, but it is the purest form of sourcing there is. You spend 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever dollars on some clicks. Those clicks convert into some conversations or warm leads.
Right.
You do your stuff as a recruiter. You're the one that, convinces that person or encourages or shares with that person why they should quit their job and go and work for their client. And that turns into a placement. For me, it's the simplest, purest source of digital sourcing there is. So why not take advantage of it in your company?
Right.
And nowadays, you're not spending money, unlike in the past where you're spending money hoping you're going to get results. Nowadays, you're only spending money for results.
Right. Now, how about like the difference as a level of position, right? Do you see a difference in terms of the way a job advert typically performs versus, like, lack of a better way to put it, kind of your C-suite type of positions versus going down into more, kind of director, everyday kind of roles, we'll just call them?
Yeah. I mean, they're different everywhere right now. I mean, today, right now, probably the hardest things to recruit, and we all know this, anything to do with healthcare, registered nurses, LPNs, those types of things, incredibly difficult. The one thing that everybody's struggling for, and it's probably because they all work for Amazon, is drivers.
Right.
I am seeing, and I've seen this a lot recently, some of our customers that are hiring drivers. They're 22 an hour jobs, $22 per hour jobs. Okay. They're the lifeblood of what this company does. They're hiring drivers. They started off about 2 months ago offering a signing on fee of $1,250. Okay. 2 weeks ago, that was up to nearly $8,000. Now, this is, I mean, you've been in this industry long enough. When did you ever see somebody offering a signing on fee for anything that wasn't in the C-suite?
Right.
It never used to happen, right? It was relocation and signing on bonuses were C-suite kind of privileges.
Right.
Now we're seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, those people are actually much harder to find. I would rather try and find a C-suite member than I would hire a driver right now, because they're just like gold dust.
Got it. So you've been a part of the successful strategies on the job advert side, pretty much sounds like in almost any position, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things. So yes, I mean, over the years, we've seen every type of job you could possibly imagine. But, current trends, obviously, I'm seeing the things that people are coming to us when they're struggling to find, and they're looking at ways that they can take a different approach or do different things. And so healthcare, driving, those types of things. Actually, funnily enough, also sales. Companies are really struggling with salespeople, really struggling to find salespeople, which never used to be the case. They're the easiest people, because the one thing salespeople do is always take your call.
Right. Yeah. So in order to kind of be successful with a job advert, like what kind of a strategy would you recommend, or what are you guys doing with as much as you're willing to share?
I'll share everything. Anyone knows me knows I'm very open about talking about these things. But so for me, there's some key fundamentals that people go wrong. The first thing is, forget this concept of free. I hear it all the time. Oh, I just want to use the free job boards. Well, you know what? They're not really free job boards. You're just a loss leader. They maybe advertise one of your jobs, but really you're there. They're giving you something free because they want you to sign up. Okay. Right. And actually, when you think about it, the average cost per click, even at a wholesale level, has gone up from 14, 15 cents 2 years ago to maybe 85 cents now. If somebody's paying 85 cents just to get somebody to look at their jobs on a job board, they can't give it to you for free. Economically doesn't work. Right. So whilst there are some examples of some people that have done really clever things for free, in terms of job postings, you've got to put some money behind it. By the way, I also am a massive believer in building content style programs, right? So you do want to share your jobs on LinkedIn. You do want to share your jobs on Facebook. But one of the biggest mistakes people make is just sharing their jobs. Okay, if all you ever do is post a job listing on Twitter or a job listing on LinkedIn or a job listing on Facebook, and then you go, oh, I never get any responses to my job postings, it's because you're not really offering anyone any interesting content. You've got to mix it with some content. You've got to put some effort into generating some content, building some brand, talking about you, and then put a job in there. And you know what? People might actually apply to it. But what I see is, somebody goes crazy and they'll post 50 jobs on Twitter, and then they go, it doesn't work. They get bored and they don't do it again. Right. So first and foremost, free doesn't work, or it's certainly not scalable. You cannot build a business on it. I would not pay for duration-based postings anymore, unless Craigslist is a serious part of your strategy. And that's one of the things that I think is an anomaly. We've all used Craigslist. Right. You'll get tons of pictures of kittens and things that you wouldn't expect when you're advertising the job, but people tend to use it, and it's a phenomenally successful site. It really shouldn't be though, should it? You've seen it. How is this site still so successful for recruitment? Yeah, it's impressive. I got to say though, when I was running my own flooring business a couple of years back, we used to go to Craigslist all the time. That was the only thing. We were just ignorant. We didn't know what else was out there. This was 15 years ago. We had no idea. So just we'll go ahead and throw some jobs up on Craigslist. So that is pretty hilarious. Now knowing what I know. Exactly. So for me, I think beyond that, there are a couple of kind of key things that I think people need to think about. Number one is, it's a job advert. It isn't a job description. Okay, do not take that Word document or PDF or what it is, or web page that your client gives you, and just re-advertise it or copy and paste it, because your results. Well, first of all, give me any one of them and I'll find 5 other copies of it already on the internet. Right. So you're already competing with everybody else. Job descriptions are inherently, corporate. They're boring. They're not giving people a reason to go and work for a company. So for me, take the effort to get a little bit better at writing job adverts. If I said to you, spend 30 minutes, write a good advert, and there's a chance, a fairly good chance, 50% chance, for example, let's just pick a random number, 50% chance that the right candidate is going to call you up and say, I'm interested. You make a couple of phone calls, you arrange the interview, you close it. That fee, they don't spend well. Right. But you know what we do? We get the job description, we copy and paste it, we put it in the internet, we put $50 behind it, and we go, oh, it didn't work. Right. So for me, don't send the job descriptions out. Fundamentally, and it should be a core competency of your business, is qualify the job, understand the things that people are going to do in that business or in that role, and then sell it. It's an advert, it's a commercial. Write something that's going to get people to understand the job, be interested, or discount it if they're not, because you don't want people applying that are just not relevant. Right. So for me, do that. And I like to use a model called company position and potential. So who is this company? What is the position? What am I going to do? What is the average work week? Who is the company? What do they do? And bring it to life, bring it so somebody can understand it in an elevator pitch. And then tell them about the potential. What does everybody want? We want to move because something's going to be beneficial for us in this job. And you should be able to answer the question, you should quit your job and come and work for my client because of X. And so for me, when I'm writing a job ad or when I'm encouraging people to write a job ad, I say use those three things: describe the company, talk about the position, tell them about the potential. Oh, sorry, lights have just gone out there.
No problem. Yeah, that's me coming from my marketing background, it's all actually the same kind of structure to a degree, not where the company, but it's like, well, figure out what your core client is. It's a lot of the same principles of like attracting somebody at a higher level at an emotional level, not so much at, hey, here's the stats of the job, with a job description.
Yeah, and if you get it right, I mean for me, right, there's probably four things that you need to do to be a really, really great at this job. And let's put that into context. An average recruiter out of the box, having not done this with a little bit of hard work, can make a six-figure salary. It's why a lot of people do this job. A really great recruiter can do 2 or 3 times that. And there isn't a massive difference between the two, apart from developing, in my opinion, these 4 skills, right? Skill number 1 is the capability to develop business through a combination of candidate and content marketing. Learning how to expertly qualify jobs, because when you're working in a contingent marketplace, you need to be able to discount the ones that you're never going to fill, right? Because your time is money, and being expert at qualifying their jobs is going to help you with that. The other thing, in my opinion, is qualifying candidates. Same experience, figuring out, is this candidate really going to move, or are they telling me I'm happy here, I don't want to move, leave me alone? Because we all do it, right? I'm looking for somebody for 2 weeks. I finally find somebody that's the perfect match for the job, and then they go into like twisting their arm. You will take my job. You will take my job, and they're going, I don't want to move. I don't want to move.
Right.
And then the final thing for me is writing great adverts. If you get good, which is kind of marketing, it's what you talk about. If you're writing great adverts and you're marketing a candidate really well, you're marketing 2 candidates really well, it brings so many benefits to your business. I was thinking about it before this conversation, because my firms are built around these kind of models, but there are several things that you get when you run an advert, right? So the first thing is, ideally, a person turns up, or you find a person that can do the job, which means it's a placement. Right. The second thing is you talk to a person who sits next to the person that could do the job, and that becomes a placement. And this is a skill that, why wouldn't we do that? Does this person work in the same department? Do they sit next to? Are they on the same floor as somebody? Maybe that person has a really interesting background or something you can sell. Are they unique? Are they local? Are they cheap? Do they have something else that they can sell? And that becomes a somebody you can market to develop new business. Right. Maybe the person becomes somebody you get to know, and they refer somebody to you, or they build your database and you place them in the future. And so for me, why wouldn't you run adverts? Because you're getting 4 or 5 benefits for every single person that clicks on that job, every single person. And as I told you, I've had the pleasure over the years of having 3,000 recruitment companies as my customers. Right. I've been inside offices. I've spoke to the CEOs of everybody from, Manpower, Allegis, companies with 10,000 recruiters, to smaller companies with 5 people. And many of them can attribute 60+% of their revenue to a candidate that they've found on a job board. They may not have found them for the right job at the time, but they were in their database. And the only reason it was in the database is because they applied to an advert. Right. So the reason these companies have got into the tens and hundreds of millions of revenue is they've got systems to benefit that. Right. I'll get off a bit of a tangent, but
no, it's great. And we talked a little bit about that before, of like the importance of like owning a process, owning a system, having some sort of methodology that's in the business. And you just talked about, the most successful clients that you've worked with, and 3,000 is a hell of a case study to kind of work off of. It sounds like the biggest and best ones have processes in place for business development, for, candidate sourcing, and always, everything is just a part of the machine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's you market a candidate to find a job, you qualify the job, you advertise the job, you have conversations with people. Some fill the job, some don't. That develops more candidates to do more marketing, because the informed companies avoid that. When we talked about this just beforehand, the boom and the bust. Yep. And the boom and the bust is, I've got 2 really great clients, I've got 10 positions, I'm going to work on them for the next 3 months, find people, close deals. And all of a sudden I've had 2-3 great months. And then you know what? I've closed all the jobs and those clients are cold again. They don't need anybody. Right. So then I have to start my business development cycle. And so you go this, you go boom, you go bust, you go boom, and you go bust. And my view is, if you continually market the people that you're talking to from your job advertisements, you should consistently have or consistently be putting those business development conversations into your hopper and converting them into future potential clients and then minimizing that kind of fluctuation.
Yep. No, I definitely agree on that. And that's, a big part of what I try to help people do and understand is that, like, you can't take your foot off the gas of business development if you're busy, and vice versa. You can't take the foot off the gas of attracting candidates, even though you don't have roles. It should be an ongoing process and system. This is what I do every single day in and day out. Going back to the job board part, what has been your experience? Because I know there's a lot of talk in this industry about, active candidates and passive candidates. And I know a lot of my clients, always talk about their ability to go attract passive candidates. I mean, what do you see from that specific conversation on job boards and job adverts?
So, I mean, I mentioned before that sometimes the person that applies the advert sits next to the perfect person.
Right.
And that's your connection to passive candidates. One of the things that we see interestingly on social that you just don't see on job boards, maybe occasionally, but not very often. And you've seen this, you see something on Facebook or Insta and you're I'll go, oh, Donnie be interested in that at Donnie. And I know you're going to see it in your feed.
Right.
So there is a reason for putting those, because people might just connect you to or add somebody into that thread that they think is going to be interested, and voila, there's your conversation to potentially a passive candidate. Right. I'm not saying that this replaces traditional search. I do genuinely think there's still 4 ways you fill jobs. You run a search, you post a job of some description, you run a search, you ask for a referral, or you use a partner, an agency, somebody to do it for you. And that could be a split fee if you're in an agency, or it could be another agency to find you somebody. But really, outside of those 4 things, and there's nuances, outside of those 4 things, there's no other way that you can recruit. So I'm not saying do not go and search for candidates. Right. Absolutely do that. But why not use advertising? Because if you can spend a few dollars and you can essentially outsource some sourcing and the right people turn up, why wouldn't you do it?
Right. No, 100%. I mean, I think that, I'm a big believer in multi-channel, multi avenues of doing things because of all the things you just said. You just don't know what's going to come up unless you're telling yourself stories of what's going to happen and what's not before you even take the action for it.
Yeah. And I mean, that happens all the time, right? People go, this week I'm going to get into social media, and they do it for like 3 days and they go, well, I posted some stuff and I never got anything from it. It's like,
it didn't work. Yeah.
It's a medium tail event. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to work at it, right? And you have to get better at it. But to sort of wrap up on the jobs, just to give people some guidelines, because one of my goals for this conversation or this talk was really, if one person can make 1 or 2 changes and it helps a placement, and I think we've done a good job for today by sharing that knowledge. So for me, they are the job description isn't what you post. You turn that into a job advert. Your job titles need to be 3 to 5 words. If you look nowadays, the number of candidates that are searching for hiring incentives is massive. So if you have a hiring incentive, and if not, talk to your client about having a hiring incentive, get that in the job title. It's really important. The other thing is, please remove the ambiguous, remove the crap, right? I don't want to see highly motivated, committed to succeed, willing to go the extra mile, personable, good communicator, excellent written and verbal communications. Because I've never met anybody that doesn't think they're all of those things, right? Just get rid of them. It's just words.
Right.
Stop putting them in your job descriptions. Write something, talk about what the person's background should have done to be relevant for this job. You will reduce the number of people apply, but you get better quality applies.
Right.
And then if you can, and you're not afraid to be a little bit more open, if you add a salary and a street address, you will get much higher rankings on Google, much higher rankings on Indeed. Recently, we did for one of our clients was we took all of their line cook roles. So, people that are just cooking on a line in the restaurant, and they were 7th in the slot for being displayed when people were searching for that. We put them into number 1 slot by adding a street address and a salary. Okay. Because people are more interested. You will get better quality results if you add that data in. So for me, there are 3 or 4 kind of key things that I think if you can make those changes and willing to make those changes to the way you post your jobs will make a massive difference. And then finally, and I know you're a tools guy as well, right? Please check the grammar, spelling, run it through Grammarly, it's free, or some other system. Just if you're going to take the effort to write a great ad, at least check it.
Right. No, that's excellent feedback. And what would you say, like, how much, and I don't understand, I know Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, YouTube ads, I understand those types of things. How much opportunity is there? You just kind of brought this up, but like, how much opportunity, once you launch an ad, how much testing can you do to actually improve, to make these things better on a platform like Indeed?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. Because you're paying per click, before you would spend $250 plus to buy an ad. Well, you can't really A/B test that, because if you want to A/B test, say, change a job title, you got to spend another $250 now.
Right.
With the way the market is now, where you're paying on a per click per application basis, the content's free. So you will post 2 or 3 versions of the same job. You just say my $250 budget is split across those 3. And so for job titles, there's 2 things that I look to do: keep them simple, add the incentives, but then also normalize for what people are searching on in your industry.
Right.
Good example that I can think of, a conversation I've had recently. A client that hires kiosk managers. Now, really, they're salespeople selling mobile phone contracts, but they're called kiosk managers. Well, I don't know anybody searching for the word kiosk manager. If I'm a salesperson, I'm searching for the word sales. So by getting rid of the word kiosk manager and replacing it with sales, or cell phone sales, or mobile phone sales, we're going to get a much bigger hit than we are. So normalizing the titles for the market that is really important as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Instead of overcomplicating it and kiosk manager, exactly. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a kiosk manager.
and you've seen it all the time, right? Companies put it in their job descriptions because it's their internal speak, and it
Right.
makes perfect sense when you work for that company.
Right.
But the outside world that doesn't work for that company has no idea, right? So normalize the job description, because that's what people are searching on. Add an address, add a location, bring the incentives to life. Rewrite the job description, tell people about the company and the position, the potential, and then make it really easy for people to apply. That's the final thing for me. And for smaller agencies, probably less of an issue because it's normally applied by email. But if you are bringing somebody to your website or your career site to apply, get rid of the long forms. Because, think about it, right? Right now, if I wanted to, on my phone, I could go online, I could download the Uber app, press a couple of buttons, and be signed up and hired as a driver in about 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I go to some job boards to apply for a job, and it's like 4 pages in a Word document and my inside leg measurement. It's like, nobody's going to do that anymore, right?
Yep.
So forget rid of that. Embrace an expression of interest. Really, this is somebody saying, I think I might be interested in this job. Let's talk about it. And then you go to work as a recruiter and you figure out, are they the right person? Can they do the job? And in which case, why should they quit their job and come and work for my client?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So, we've covered a lot on terms of the structure of the job, the difference of the job ad and the job description, some of the little, tweaks we've seen with location and address and job salary and things like that. Anything else, from the job ad specifically that we haven't covered that you want to share some light on?
No, I mean, I think we've probably, for me, covered the bulk of it. The 4 or 5 key points, as I said to you before, is it's a job advert, a commercial, not a spec. It's a job title that's relevant, that matches what people are likely to be searching for. It's taking out the unnecessary words that just don't, the meaningless stuff, because we don't read them anyway.
Right.
It's the bias or grammar, grammar check to make sure that your ads are legit. And then finally, it's embracing this concept of the person's expressing an interest. Really what they're saying is, I want to talk to somebody about this job, as opposed to I'm actually applying for it, because who knows at the beginning. So embracing those things, paying on a per click basis and making it part of your strategy. And then when you talk to a candidate, having the insight to say, okay, he or she may not be able to do this job, but they may be worth marketing to my clients in this vertical sector, and then using that as your next round of business development, introducing that person, looking at that person as a project, saying, can I help that person get a new job? because that's going to constantly deliver you new clients and new conversations. So
Right.
for me, those are the important things.
Beautiful. So to take another step further, one of the things that I commonly hear in the industry or area of opportunity is just the overall candidate experience. So what do you help your clients do? They apply for the job. What are some of the key things that you've seen, really successful firms do to really enhance that candidate experience? Because a lot of people apply and then they never hear back, right?
I mean, you know what frustrates me? It's 2021 and we're still having the same conversation that we were having 20 years ago. If you really want to do a good job for a candidate, go and apply for 50 jobs and taste what they do, right? Go and experience it. And I promise you now, your approach to looking after them will be entirely different, right? Once you've been through it, anyone who's looked for a job recently knows it's, can we be quite open on this channel? It can be a shit experience, right?
Yep.
Sorry. And I'm English, so that's really an Irish joining word. I'm not cursing. It could be a terrible experience. Go and apply for a few jobs, experience what it's like, and do the opposite. All people actually want to do is find out if they're interested in the job and figure out if they'd like to do it. That's your job. That's your recruiter's job. The technology is to get the two of you together. It's just a lead. It's a warm lead.
Yep.
And be a bit more proactive with those warm leads. And I'll tell you who's really phenomenal at this. If anybody's bought a car recently, you go online and you go through your car configurator and you build your car and you go, oh, I really want this truck. By the way, I like trucks. I moved to America and I figure when you move to America, you got to buy a truck. So I've had a truck since I've been in America, right?
There you go.
And a smoker, but I started off with a truck. Now, you go online and you build a new truck, which I seem to do way too often. Within 20 minutes, my text is blowing up, my calls are blowing up. People want to talk to you. We have a candidate apply for a job and we might give them a call back 4 days later.
Right.
It's like, if it's important for us to advertise that job, let's engage with these people. Now, whether that's, an automated text back to at least acknowledge.
Yep.
And then, if they get into some sort of funnel or filter, then maybe we pick up the phone calls. So where you step in as a person and pick up the conversation using your AI, so actual intelligence, that's up to you. Mm-hmm. But treat people, answer their questions they've got. They're showing you they're interested. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, love it. Love it. From the job advert side of things, if somebody was trying to, never done this before, how would you recommend that somebody goes about and gets started with something like this?
Figure out where the candidates in your marketplace, what publishers they're likely to be using, and look at the ways that you can embrace a cost per click or a cost per application model, whether that's something that we do at RedDot or it's an Appcast or a Jovio or one of these platforms. Some of these companies are geared up much more for high volume recruiting. Mm-hmm. and you don't necessarily need lots of systems if you're doing ones and twos. So right. There are the big job boards, whether it's Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Monster, Career Builder, etc. There's tons of them out there. Find what works in your marketplace, figure out what it costs to run an advert on there, and start testing it.
Right. Perfect. And with as busy as the market is right now, there's probably a lot of opportunity to throw this into the repertoire if you're not able to fill those candidates, or fill those roles fast enough.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, for sure. It's really hectic at the moment. The cost per click has gone. Wholesale cost per click prices are up. Retail cost per click prices are probably. I've seen everything in this year, from 85 cents a click to $14.
Wow.
And when I say, and it's $14 for somebody to look at your job, not to apply, to look at your job.
Yep.
Now, granted, most small boutique agencies are not spending $15 for somebody to look at their jobs. I get it. But if I came to you and said $150 buys 10 qualified people to look at your jobs, and probably 2 of them or 1 or 2 of them, if you've got the job right, are going to reply, $150 to potentially make a placement to get 2 interviews. You tell me, what is an average interview to placement ratio now? 10 to 1? 5 to 1?
You probably know better than I, but yeah.
So let's say an average placement ratio is now 10 to 1. If you could buy 10 qualified candidates for those interviews for a couple $100, you'd do it.
Absolutely, no brainer. Yeah.
And nowadays you're only paying for results, so that's much better.
Right. Well, I think the thing that you kind of bring up is a quality ad is going to lead to a qualified candidate. And I think
Yes.
what most people's experience, just like you're saying earlier, oh, I posted some content, it didn't work. Oh, I posted a job, it didn't work. But if you don't have the right ad, then you're not going to get the right result that you're after.
Exactly. And there's no shortcut to content branding, individual success. That's going to take some time, and
Yep.
it's going to take consistency. A job advert is a package that you can press a button on now and you will start getting some engagement straight away. They're already doing that bit for you. So that's
Yep.
a shortcut for most people, but I think you should do both.
Right.
I don't think it's one or the other. It's the genius. What's the phrase? The genius of and versus the tyranny of or. So it's both. Do this and that, not both,
Yep.
one or the other.
Right. Now, we haven't really discussed it much, but like, what are you seeing, or do you guys dabble at all on like the social media side?
Yeah, we do actually. We do a lot of social media work for our clients. Obviously, the main plays are Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, we've had some interesting success with kind of modern radio ads, Spotify, Pandora. They're not hugely expensive. I mean, people think it can be hugely expensive, but you can buy a starting ad on there for $250.
Right.
And you can reach thousands of people. But again, most people in boutique recruitment agencies are not looking at branded work, but it is there for you.
Right.
Reddit's really interesting because if you find there's a subreddit around a particular subject you're interested in, you can sponsor that, and you're sponsoring that for, $5 or $10 per 1,000 impressions. One of the ones I'm exploring a lot more recently is Nextdoor. The local app.
Yep.
They're just about to go public with a $5 billion valuation.
Wow.
So you've got your hyper local market there. So I'm exploring ad channels on there because I think that's a very interesting one where somebody walks in the door and they say, or they'll know somebody and they'll say, hey, I saw a job on nextdoor.com. You should. So I think you can engage with local communities there. And
Right.
I don't think that's going to be particularly expensive. So there's some interesting opportunities.
Yeah.
But we've tried everything from billboards to big campaigns to you name it.
How does social media compare specifically against like a traditional, job board?
So it always used to be historically more expensive. Social was great for branding awareness or for multiple positions, getting people to look at the jobs or a career day or some sort of event. Because the cost of advertising has gone up, just because there's so many people that are not working right now, it's on a par. I would spend the same potentially on a job board as I would do on a Facebook campaign.
Right.
The fundamental difference with Facebook is I get to add video, I get to add images, I get to do several versions of an ad under the same campaign. That technology is not quite as flexible on the job boards. And the other thing I get with Facebook is people share it with other people that think might be interested.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that shares an Indeed job unless they're looking themselves and they want to get a colleague to take a job.
Right. Yeah. Social, I think there's a lot of opportunity, once you learn. Yep.
But you've got.
Go
Sorry, go. No, you go first.
I would say, everything I've experienced in social is just got to be committed to a lot of testing, because it's not as easy targeting in a lot of situations, especially on like a platform like Facebook and Instagram. It's not like there's cookie cutter targeting, especially with their special ad categories and things like that. It makes it a little bit more challenging, I would imagine. But I think you got to be committed to testing, just like we kind of talked about through the whole time.
Absolutely, and it depends what type of recruiter you have. Me personally, I would much rather write an ad and have conversations with some warm leads to try and fill a job than I would cold outreach to people.
Right.
Because not all of them, but a lot of your emails are going to go unanswered. I don't want to crunch the phone all day, annoying people that don't want to talk to me.
Right.
And be put into that annoying category. So doing some marketing, whether that's a job advert or social, to generate some warm conversations, I found made my job much more enjoyable. Because 90% of the time you have a conversation, something good comes out of it. It might not be today, but who knows, tomorrow you might get a call from a client and you remember that conversation and you send one text or call somebody or send one LinkedIn message, they remember you and you made a placement.
Right.
And that comes from doing that for a period of time. So for me, that was just a much more interesting way to build my desk. Much more interesting.
Right. Easier top of mind brand awareness. Yep.
And the guys, I'm sure with what you do and the guys at Pager, they've got those systems really dialed in to help automate that for people as well.
Yeah, yeah, Pager's done a great job. I really like working with Alistair, and that's a phenomenal tool. So, well, awesome, Kelly. Thank you so much. I mean, this has been just incredibly knowledgeable for myself, and I know for the audience as well, that's listening in. I mean, how can everybody follow and get in touch with you if they're looking to, tap into you?
Oh yeah, and I'm happy to. If anyone's got any questions, I'm always happy to answer. If they ask you, fire them to me and I'll respond. But you can find me on Twitter, Kelly J Robinson, the same on LinkedIn, or you can contact me through email at kelly@reddotmedia.co.
Excellent, excellent. And I always like to ask if you could leave the audience with one last piece of advice, one nugget that you think would impact them. What would that be?
It's the qualify word. For me, learn to qualify jobs and candidates. Really, really, really. I got taught this, fortunately, when I moved into recruitment. The qualification was the key to it all. If you really truly understand qualifying a job description, so not accepting, here is a document the client sent me, here is a web page. I want to talk to somebody, or at least want to ask some questions to figure out what is it that the person that does this job needs to have or needs to have done before in the past. Just get better at qualifying. You will make more placements. You will, if you're doing 10 interviews to one placement right now, you could turn that from 5 to 1 to 3 to 1, same amount of work, treble the output, right?
Right.
And it's all through qualifying. And also you will save yourself thousands of hours of wasted work on jobs that you're never going to close, right?
That's excellent. I love it's excellent advice. I think it's a huge need in the industry.
Yeah, so qualify.
Yep. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that are frustrated about how many jobs they have that they're working on that they just don't fill. And half the time it's because that job's not qualified. So great advice, Kelly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. Relevant Recruiter Group, we will be back next week with another couple live shows. And until then, you guys have a great weekend, and we'll talk to everybody soon.